The battle for Willow Creek. I woke up one crisp September morning in 2023 to the sight of strangers on our family's land, a sprawling 14-acre plot nestled along Willow Creek in rural Virginia. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, the kind of morning my grandpa Henry used to call perfect for fishing. But instead of rods and bait, I saw bright yellow flags stabbed into the soil near the creek, where Henry taught me to cast a line as a kid. 3 men in neon vests were poking around, snapping photos, and scribbling notes like they owned the place. Their voices carried that sharp, official tone people use when they think a badge or a clipboard makes them untouchable. My gut told me something was off, and as a structural engineer who spent years poring over blueprints and dodging shady municipal deals, I trust my instincts when something smells like trouble. I grabbed my coffee and stepped onto the porch of our old farmhouse, the same porch where Henry and I used to sit and watch the sunset. The men were near the tree line, about 50 yards from the house, planting metal stakes with those glaring flags. I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone and called the county sheriff's office, expecting a quick response to what looked like clear-cut trespassing. The dispatcher took my details, but sounded like she was reading from a script, promising a deputy would come by when available. I paced the porch, watching these strangers treat our land like a survey site. 20 minutes later, a deputy rolled up, chatted with the men for maybe 5 minutes, then strolled back to me. "This is a civil matter, Mr. Carter," he said, tipping his hat like he was in some old western. "Take it up with your HOA." I stared at him, dumbfounded, as he drove off, leaving me feeling like I'd just been scolded for reporting a crime on my own property. Furious, I marched toward the men. They were now at the creek, measuring water flow and snapping more photos. Willow Creek has been ours since my great-great-grandfather bought this land after World War II. The team leader, a stocky guy with a clipboard and a smirk, barely glanced at me. "We're doing an environmental assessment for the HOA," he said, handing me a glossy flyer stamped with official-looking seals. It was packed with jargon about watershed protection and community enhancement, but the logo looked like it was slapped together in a hurry, like something a kid would mock up on a budget design app. I asked for their permits, but they dodged my questions, avoiding eye contact. That's when Henry stepped out. At 75, Henry's lean as a rail, with the kind of quiet strength you only get from decades of military discipline. He stood in the doorway, sizing up the scene, then vanished back inside. I heard the creak of his closet, the shuffle of something heavy, and then his boots on the hardwood. He reappeared with his old hunting rifle, holding it low, not threatening, just present. The air shifted. The survey team froze as Henry walked toward us, steady as ever. "Got authorization papers for this?" he asked, his voice calm but cutting. The leader stammered about HOA clearance, waving his clipboard like it was a shield. Henry didn't blink. "Show me a legal warrant." Silence stretched out, broken only by the creek's soft ripple and distant birdsong. The men packed up their gear, yanked their flags, and peeled out in their truck without another word. Henry turned to me, a glint in his eye. "That's the 5th time they've tried this," he said, like he was talking about the weather. My stomach dropped. 5th. I spent the rest of the morning studying that flyer. It claimed to be from Blue Horizon Environmental, but the fine print mentioned land use modifications that made my skin crawl. Henry sat across from me at the kitchen table, sipping coffee. "Your great-great-grandpa fought for this land twice," he said. "Once in the war, once in court. Looks like it's our turn." I drove to the county office in town the next day, a dingy building that reeked of old paper and stale ambition. The clerk, a wiry woman named Ellen, pulled up our records and frowned. "Your property's flagged for a watershed assessment, but state law requires 30 days written notice." We'd never gotten a letter, a call, nothing. Then she showed me a consent form with my signature or what was supposed to be mine. I'd never seen it before. The ink looked smudged, the handwriting shaky, like a bad photocopy. Ellen's eyes narrowed. "This looks off. I'm filing a verification report." Before I could process it, a voice cut in. "James Carter, right? Settling in okay?" It was Tom Bradley, a rep from Blue Horizon Development I'd heard about, but never met. Short, slick, with a smile that screamed used car salesman. He claimed he was just in the area, checking paperwork, but his timing felt staged. I confronted him about the trespassing and the forged signature. His smile flickered, but he recovered fast, spinning a tale about how a protected conservation zone could triple our property's value. I wasn't buying it. When I pressed about notification laws, he dodged, muttering about market trends. Ellen, who'd been listening, cleared her throat. Mr. Bradley, state code requires 30 days notice for assessments, and this consent form needs verification. Tom's face went from pink to ashen. I left the office with a stack of records showing Blue Horizons pattern. Fake eco-assessments leading to luxury resorts masked as nature preserves. Back home, Henry showed me his journal, filled with faded entries from my great-great-grandfather. One from 1960 chilled me. Found family graves shifted 20 feet west. They're stealing our dead with our land. Henry unrolled two maps, one from a 1960 military survey. Another Blue Horizon was using. The differences were stark. Our property line had been nudged 25 feet inward, slicing off part of the creek. Blue Horizon knew the real boundaries, but was rigging the records. Henry's notebook detailed 5 prior intrusions, complete with photos of survey crews, their trucks, even our daily routines. They'd been watching us for months. I felt sick realizing Henry had been fighting this alone while I was distracted, rebuilding my life after a messy divorce. The next morning, an unmarked envelope in our mailbox held a grainy photo of Henry patrolling with his rifle. A warning. I started knocking on neighbors' doors. Mrs. Clara, a 20-year resident, was horrified to learn she'd signed an environmental impact authorization, thinking it was a conservation petition. Others, like the Wilsons, admitted they signed hoping for a payout from development. One neighbor, eyes darting, warned me to back off. Accidents happen out here, James. I learned Ellen, the HOA president, had been widowed a year ago, drowning in debt. Blue Horizon offered her a commission to push their agenda, exploiting her grief to trick neighbors into signing away rights. The community was split, some duped, some greedy, some scared. I called Ellen and demanded an emergency HOA meeting. She tried to brush it off, but when I cited state laws and mentioned forged documents, her voice shook. The meeting was set for a Thursday at the community center, a musty room packed with confused residents. I brought a folder of evidence: Henry's photos, forged forms, altered maps, but the projector fritzed, showing only static. Ellen seized the moment, painting me as a troublemaker stirring up drama post-divorce. The crowd started to turn, murmuring. Then Henry stepped in. Who sold the creek rights? He asked, his voice slicing through the noise. He held up a document proving Blue Horizon had transferred Willow Creek's rights 6 months ago using forged consents. The room froze. I fixed the projector, and the evidence lit up the screen: forged signatures, fake maps, Ellen's lies. She cracked, admitting they'd expedited the process to meet deadlines. A confession caught on my phone's recorder. Chaos erupted. Residents shouted, demanding her resignation. As we left, I found our mailbox open, the 1960 map and other evidence gone. Only a note remained. This isn't over. I hired Laura Bennett, a sharp property rights attorney. She called Ellen's recording gold and outlined a plan: injunctions, fraud charges, and a federal probe into the county's role. Posing as an investor, I got Blue Horizon's proposal: a glitzy resort plan for Willow Creek, complete with cabins and a golf course, set to start in 6 months. It confirmed they'd been surveying for over a year, long before any consents. Laura found Blue Horizon's rep, Tom, had warrants in 2 states for similar scams. A former county employee, Sarah, had altered our records before resigning. The proposal included photos of our house, our garden, proof of months of spying. 2 days later, another crew showed up, bolder, with soil samplers. I went live online, streaming to hundreds, then thousands. The crew leader flashed forged papers. Tom arrived with a thug posing as security. I demanded permits, zooming in on the fakes for my audience. Henry appeared, rifle in hand, and fired a warning shot. The crew froze. Sirens wailed as police arrived. I handed over our evidence, and the cops unraveled Blue Horizon's scam live. Tom was cuffed, his warrants exposed. The stream went viral, sparking a national outcry. The fallout was swift. Tom faced fraud and trespassing charges. Blue Horizon's assets were frozen. Ellen was ousted, charged, and lost her home to legal fees. Sarah was arrested in Georgia. Our community threw a barbecue by Willow Creek. Neighbors united for the first time in years. Mrs. Clara thanked Henry, tears in her eyes, saying her husband, a Vietnam vet, would have done the same. I realized this fight wasn't just about land, it was my purpose, forged in the fire of protecting our legacy. Henry taught me to safeguard our records, ensuring no one could rewrite our boundaries again. One evening, as we watched the creek glow under the moon, Henry said, "Tomorrow, we bury a time capsule map, court papers, one bullet. So our kids know we fought." The land stood firm, but our story had shifted forever. What would you do if someone tried to steal your family's legacy with a forged signature? Should you fight back with a rifle or a lawsuit or both? Can a community ever heal after being torn apart by greed and lies? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if this hit home, and subscribe to keep up with stories like ours. Stay fierce, stay vigilant, and never let anyone redraw your map.